the imagery, also apart from living in a city that lends such beautiful landscapes for such beautiful imagery, the project is so incredibly awe-inspiring. Can you tell me a little bit more about how the project started? Where did the inspiration come from? How was it born, Julio?
Well, it was born in La Moneda in Chile. We bombed La Moneda with poems. It was a special moment in our history because Pinochet there was a trial coming on, and in Chilean society there was for the first time a real debate about the atrocities that has happened during the dictatorship. So it was a time of liberation somehow, and we were young, and we started 2 or 3 years before collecting money through parties to make a review, and we used the same system to collect the money to print the poems. And when the printer knew about our intentions, they told us they told us just to pay the materials, and they would work for free. So it was quite cheap. And also we organized a party for celebrating the bombing of poems. The same very day, the same very night, we did the project. Then we paid the helicopter with a check, but it was Friday, so they couldn't change the check until Monday. It was good because we didn't have the money in the bank account.
So it was a quick workaround.
Yes, we collected the money in this party.
All right. And that was the first time you ever organized the bombing of poems. So that was in La Moneda,
2001.
in Santiago, Chile. And can you tell me anything about the exact moment this idea of bombing a city with poems instead of with violence, about the moment this idea was born? Joaquin.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. It's the first time I see the video in a cinema, so I'm excited like you. In the moment that we saw our sky with the poem, Cristobal many times said that we discovered the project because it's beautiful when you see the poem falling for the sky, and you don't know what is about that. You read the poem, you know that it's different poem. You change the poem with other people. So and we decide to share this experience with other people. This is the first intention that we have. But it's not easy to say, well, we want to show this project with other people with another situation. And for me, the poetry, they have this force because we did it in other country, but first, to do the project, we need to find poets or someone to meet the poet in another country. And when they love the project, we do the project together, and that's I think that's why a Chilean project had the chance to stay in Rotterdam to do the project together with people from Rotterdam. So,
and fortunately, as poets yourself, it is I can imagine quite easy to make connections with poets from other countries, because poetry is such an integral form of art, of expression, that really, whilst being about language, can really transcend borders. Can you tell me something about how did poetry become your medium for artistic expression, and especially for protest? Cristobal.
Well, um, in the 90s, we live in Chile what we call the transition to democracy. It was a very the relation with culture was weak in some way after all these years of dictatorship, and in the 90s, even though that in Chile there is a strong tradition with literature. I will say, for example, in this project we invite always 50 poets, a young generation, and also you can find a lot of very good poets. So we don't need to do a great exercise to find 50 new poets to be invited to this performance. So saying that, in the 90s, I will say that, well, I met with Joaquin in high school, and then I met with Julio. He returned from exile with his family, and there, in the 90s was a very important kind of scholarship workshop associated with poetry, one from Neruda Foundation. So I got this scholarship with Julio, so we met there. We are talking about 1996. So in a way, I will say that we start very based on poetry, but at the same time, Casagrande as a project became alive of first to be a magazine. We basically create a magazine that was founded organizing parties in the university, so was no sponsor. Our relation with the sponsor was very connected with the neoliberal project that came after the dictatorship in Chile. So we believe that everything should be for free, that kind of stuff. So there was no sponsorship and no board of this magazine. So nobody knew who would be behind Casagrande. The anonymity of Casagrande was very important. But we published our generation of poets, our friends, not only poets, also novelists, also visual artists. So that is the beginning. I will say from poetry to different kind of disciplines and transforming the stuff. So we published this magazine for 4 years, and then we moved to the public space, and then, I don't know, we are here in Rotterdam.
And now we are here in Rotterdam, definitely.
After 30 years almost, yeah.
Almost 30 years, next year. I can imagine it has been an amazing ride. You have done a lot of incredible projects. We've been talking a little bit about that. But while we were having a drink earlier, one thing that really caught my attention was that you said you didn't expect people to become emotional from a project like Bombing of Poems. Why is that?
Well, it just because we have been doing this so many years that somehow there is a sense of normality, and I mean we have the habit. I mean we are specialized in something that happened 45 minutes, and that you have to work to make it real. You have to work 1 or 2 years. So I guess just getting into the hard work, you forget your feelings, and it's something that we have learned is that, for instance, about the pilot, the best pilots are the more unhearted. I mean, with less feeling.
All right.
Better skills to be a pilot.
But I had to say that when present the project with people from the Poetry International, and they are that from Rotterdam, they are nervous because they said that there are 4,000 people, they say, but they thought that maybe the poems fall into the sky. People from Rotterdam say that, like, read the poem and say, "Oh, beautiful." So we said that I suppose that they behave like in human beings in the other cities. So they transforming children. They fight for the poem. And they say, yeah, you are right. So that's I think it's another way to see the or to answer your question.
That was definitely something that really, one of the most striking things from being there at the Binnenrotte, at the bombing of Poland, but also you can see it in the after movie, is that childlike wonder that you can see on faces and people running, jumping to catch these poems out of the sky. It really brings to mind how art, and especially art in the public space, can bring out that inner child. Speaking of inner children, do you think that if you think back on your 10-year-old self, for example, that you would be here and that you would be sharing art and paying remembrance to such incredible loaded history as well through art? Do you think you would be here?
Well, two things. I will say, when we went to Poland in Warsaw, the people there said to us, "Hey, we have seen the film of this project. Polish people are not like this." And we say, "Okay, we need to wait. You need," and which is something that is interesting. Like the people say, "Hey, we will not fight for Poland." Like that. We will. Something that we have discovered of being in all these different cultures and different cities, that there is a sort of like a common element associated with the experience of the performance. And long time ago, when we went to Guernica in 2004, most of you maybe will know the history of the bombing of Guernica in 1937, very famous because of Picasso's big canvas. So in Guernica, I think was the second time that we went out to do this project, but it's the first time that we met survivors of the bombing of 1937.
Wow. How was that?
The average of the people that we met in 2004 was like 90 years old, and they were kids when they experienced the bombing of the German Air Force. So, and after a few days being in Guernica, we see kids, because the poems were on the roof, so for the wind, the poems still were falling.
Even days later?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we have this experience of how these kids will remember our performance and how different was the experience that we have with these survivors, that they share with us the experience of being witness of this atrocity. So I will say in Guernica we match all the elements. One of the most important elements of what we are trying to do without really knowing what we are doing. I don't know if it makes sense. Like this is not something that you just write in a board and go for action. It's about life, like we were working together as friends with memory. Let's go out, let's see what happened, So I will say that is basically the experience with age, with the past, with the present. So I returned to Guernica in 2008, and Julio said to me, "Hey, this is nice, like because they have in the school reading the poems. Because it's a very small village. It's about 100,000 people in those years. Guernica is a very small village. So the people said, we're talking about which bombing, the real one or the one with poetry. So
wow.
These kind of things happen, with
it has
age,
become
with kids.
A statement. So bombing of
Yeah.
poems has become almost something bigger than, how do you say that? The law. Well, no. It has become something beautiful and a bridge to connect these two and transform these two situations.
Yes.
Yes, in Croatia also we asked after making the project how you felt about the bombing, and they answered
which one?
Mm.
So,
Do we think that we're going to be asking those same questions? Can I see a show of hands? Which one? A little bit here and there. I think it is an absolutely beautiful thing to transform something, a situation, a history that is so violent, and pay remembrance to it and transform it into something that is beautiful and that also creates so much wonder for a city. Do you think that poetry can still enact real change, especially in social and political spheres?
yes, because the big events are still happening. I mean,
Yes.
you take, for example, the French Revolution, and you can see how it's evolving in many different dimensions. I think about the Big Bang. The Big Bang is still happening, as you can measure the microwaves that are still, around because of the Big Bang. And also the 1940 bombardment, it's still happening because it's still on the mind of people, and we realized this talking with people whose parents witnessed the 1940 bombing. So it is a way, as you said before, to transform something. And this is the way, because when the poems are falling, there are many things happening, but it's not only the poems falling over a city. It has many different dimensions that are as solid. It cannot be here, it cannot be seen, but it's happening and it's in a very solid way.
In a very solid way that also can be felt through and through. I think that is what is especially beautiful about this project, is that it is to be felt, and it is flighty because it's one moment and it's gone in the other moment, or so to say. Luckily, the poems that have been dropped over Rotterdam are all actually right here. And the poets that have contributed to the bombing of poems have also recorded their poems. And one of those poets is a Chilean poet that made a video for us, and her name is Macarena Garcia. Macarena Garcia is a writer, is a novelist, and especially a philosopher. She holds a PhD in philosophy. She has published numerous works. Her work is known for being very, very theoretical, but also bringing the depth of the real stories in society, bringing beauty to it. Please give a warm applause for Macarena Garcia.
Cuéntales acerca del calor y el cobijo inconfesable de las noches en mi almohada. Háblales de lo mucho que se extrañan los latidos y la sangre, la memoria palpitante formando poco a poco un vacío donde ayer. Recuérdales que antes de este cuerpo hubo otro cuerpo, invertido como la tierra de la que penden los árboles, y el cielo llora, riega tu pelo a nuestros pies. Mi nombre es Macarena García y este poema será bombardeado desde los cielos de Rotterdam en mayo de 2025 por el colectivo Casagrande. Cuéntales acerca del calor y el cobijo inconfesable de las noches en mi almohada. Háblales de lo mucho que se extrañan
Sometimes
los
poetry is
latidos
so
y la
beautiful you
sangre,
have to watch it
la
twice.
memoria palpitante.
Maybe that is what's happening. Thank you. We have another guest poet. One of the poems that has been dropped as well over the city was written by former Dutch poet laureate, my apologies, a poet that is known for his incredibly lyrical clarity, for amazing work. He has published his works in Frisian, he has published his works in Dutch. You may have seen him hosting a program here or there today, tomorrow, Sunday. Please give a warm, warm welcome for Chad Branja.
Goedenavond. Het gedicht dat uit het vliegtuig werd gegooid is geïnspireerd door een genocide. En ik lees eerst het gedicht voor over een andere genocide die nu plaatsvindt. Wees in aanbouw. Wie gaat er over jou wanneer? Met welke precisie en welke snelheid komen ze? Word je gevonden tussen staal dat om je heen verbogen is? Zijn je bloed en vlees gekookt, verdampt, boven gruis uitgestegen? Water gaat waar het heen kan, energie gaat niet verloren. Genade kan hete adem zijn op zoek naar een andere nek. Was er tijd om door te groeien voor je woede in dat moment? Zag je uit wie verder die dag het leven nog moest stromen? Richting welk? Richting wat vat? Dat onnadrukkelijke, dat onuitputtelijke verwijzen. En die eerdere genocide. Dus dit gedicht is geschreven voor, of bij het evenement in Westerbork, waar de 106.000 namen, of 103 volgens mij, van mensen die vernietigd zijn, worden voorgelezen. Hoeft een naam iets? Elke naam moet tenminste 1 keer worden gespeld op het gemeentehuis. Vreugdevol door een ouder die met die naam een geloof, een held, een vriend of een familielid in leven houdt. Elke naam moet minstens 4000 keer worden geroepen vanuit een half open buitendeur, terwijl de warme lucht van het avondeten zich door een keukenraam een koude kinderneus in krult. Alle namen horen zeker 5 maal op het puntje van de tong van een beste vriend te liggen bij de vraag naar wie zijn of haar beste vriend is en waarom. Geen één naam verdient het ongefluisterd te blijven en niet via het oor van een geliefde buitengewoon vaak de buik van die ander te kriebelen. Daar zijn namen voor gemaakt. Namen horen een leven lang mee te gaan. En met een heel leven weet u heel goed wat ik bedoel. Namen mogen alleen langzaam verdwijnen uit onze gedachten en niet voordat ze een afscheidsdansje hebben gemaakt op onze bevende lippen. Er is geen enkele reden om de naam van een muur te schroeven als die naam niet een nieuw huis te wachten staat. Dank u wel.
Amazing, thank you so much. Especially in this incredible period of time in our history, in our collective history, in the entire world, where a lot is happening, a lot of people are suffering. I think it is very important to use art to connect, to raise awareness, to bring out the beauty in humanity, especially because humanity can be very complex, can be very ugly as well. So thank you for your amazing poem. I want to ask, do you have a favorite poem of Rotterdam? Cristóbal.
Yes.
And these poems have been translated to Spanish, and can you remember what the poem was about?
Well, one of them, we invite many young women Chilean poets, and one poem that I really like is I think she's a granddaughter of Nicanor Parra, the famous Chilean poet, Cristalina Parra. Julio invite her, and I really like her poem. It's about maybe it, I don't know, maybe it's connected with the performance. That was I like it. It's is this idea that is something that is falling, and she kind of described the many things that we name about being falling from like a bird, a star, I don't know, like a rain.
Mhm.
So I think that was one of, from the Chilean part, one of my favorite for this.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh yes, indeed. Well, you know, the there's a very high level, you know, in Dutch poetry in the poems that were selected, but we three were amazed reading the poems written by kids.
From the school.
Yes,
I think
yes.
there was the Wolfert College.
There are
Yes.
5
Students, 5 poets, young, very young students.
We didn't expect that.
No?
No. Yeah, no, they were kind of, I don't know, they had some, the flash, they had some spark.
And can you tell me about the importance of educating the younger generation in the art of poetry?
Well, it gives you a sense to understand the world in a deeper dimension, you know, but because well, it allows you to be aware of the things that are happening. You know, there are many ways of understanding the importance of poetry, but if you see from the perspective of the science, you cannot talk about abstract conceptions in abstract topics in science without using poetic language.
Okay.
For when you talk about parallel lines,
Mhm.
you can say that parallel lines are the lines that cross in the infinite. For
That
instance,
is poetic on itself.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Mhm. When we talking about astronomy, also, it's well, there are things that are so strange that you cannot use the current language. You have to innovate about in order to describe what is happening.
So would you say the universe in itself is poetic?
I would say that I would say that they have found giant clouds of sugar. So I would say that the universe is sweet.
Very sweet, very sweet. This actually makes me think of a quote by a Chilean amazing poet, also the first Latin American writer to win the Nobel Prize for Literature, Gabriela Mistral. And she has this amazing quote that says, "Lo que el alma es al cuerpo, eso es el artista a su pueblo," which translates to, what the soul is to the body, so is the artist to their people. I saw in the after movie that in the end credits, after the name of all the Chilean poets, there was also a small dedication to Gabriela Mistral. Can you tell us about what does this particular quote mean in the context of projects like Bombing of Poems?
Well, Gabriela Mistral received the Nobel Prize in 1945. So this year was the 80th anniversary. I don't know if you know, but we invite also always to this project young poets. So it's never the most important poets of a country. So we always need to fight with our Chileans friends why there is not Neruda or even Mistral. It's first time that we include a poem of Mistral because of this particular.
All right, because of the 80th anniversary of her Nobel Prize.
And well, in my kind of personal relation with her work, one of the things that I admire is that she was a very visionary artist. She born in the north of Chile, in a valley that is called the Valle de Elqui, in a town that is called Vicuña, a very beautiful, very magic space. And there is letters of her writing in the 20s. so almost 100 years ago, about the necessity of water reservoirs for the north of Chile. So she was super clever in that level. She also talked about the importance of equality and freedom of women, you know,
Definitely.
in the culture. So, Joaquin.
No, I'm not sure, but the code that you choose appear in many graffiti. So I'm not sure that people that are doing the graffiti know that is from this poem that we choose in the. So
Probably not.
this kind of things for me is beautiful to know where we part of something bigger also.
Thank you. And that's how you can see how poetry can transcend poetry itself, because a quote like that, if the words strike hearts and if the words really strike the right chords, it transcends everything and it comes to the wider public. Speaking of the wider public, I have a question for the audience. If this, how do you say that? If you could give a quote to be dropped over this city, what would it be? Is there anyone that would like to receive a poem from the amazing bombing of poems in return for a quote? Or a question. You can also ask the amazing members of Casagrande a question. There's a very, very timid crowd tonight. Yes.
Okay. So
Let me just.
there's a line by a Dutch poet called F. van Dixhoorn, and it goes: Wat is lekker bij wat? Which means, what goes well with what?
All right.
So sugar would be one.
And why would you, please, why would you use that quote? Why would you love to see that quote dropped over the city?
Because it's very playful, and the people in Rotterdam are very playful and have a great sense of humor.
We definitely do. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If there is something that the members of Casagrande should know about the city, in one-word answers. Can I hear some one-word answers? I'm just gonna go over here.
There will
Do
be
you have a
a
one-word
poem.
answer? Iconen? Icons. Icons. There you go. There's a poem for you. Does anyone else want a poem? You just need to say one word. What should Casagrande know about Rotterdam as a city?
Forgiving, forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Can we share that?
Can we share that?
Can we share that as team in when you're talking about bombing itself, because it's something about history as well, and we have this poetry down here which makes intention to it, but does it in context of the war which is going on all over the world in the moment is just transfer people much more further than that.
Mm-hmm. It really does. Forgiveness is very, very important in contexts like these. Thank you very much. Definitely. Also, I'm gonna go over there. I'm just gonna keep asking questions. Let's see. I see a grin over here. What should Casagrande know about Rotterdam as a city?
No sé, no vivo aquí, pero... ik woon niet in Rotterdam.
Or about the Netherlands?
But you have been often.
We zijn heel direct, somos directos. Muy fuerte, heel hard, heel muy expresiva, heel expressief.
Very expressive. Thank you very much. Yes, we are a direct people, definitely. But I do think that once we connect, we can really connect on a deeper level. Thank you for the light in the audience. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a poem to give you. Yes. Thank you so much. I have another question for the audience. If Casagrande were to come back next year, what would you like to see from Casagrande?
And what would I like to see? First of all, I'm just gonna say another perspective. I think I'm an international person, and I saw that like many international students or people didn't know about this, and this is such a cool event that takes place. I would say I would wish that next time it would be like maybe we could have seen more and heard about this event more. And second of all, maybe more also. I only heard from the videos. That's just like a perspective towards from there. If there was only like Dutch and Spanish poetry poems, maybe more English based as well, or from other countries as well. So that would be my answers.
Thank you so much. Here is a poem for you. I think this is extremely valuable feedback, and especially something that the members of Casagrande were looking for, because there are millions of opportunities to come back. How do you feel about incorporating English poems as well?
The first question you asked is how we felt about returning to Rotterdam a month after the performance, and I wanted to say that I wish it won't be the last time.
I also wish it wouldn't be the last time for you, all of you, to be here. Who else joins me in that opinion? Yay! I would love to see more of your work. What cities are you planning on bombing with poems next?
Well,
Big sigh.
yes, no, we're living in not a good moment, but we thought that the project we need to do in place where the bombing of poem passed years before. We are thinking in Nagasaki, Hanoi, because we receive a lot of questions related with cities that sadly receive bombing right now. So, but for our perspective, it's very important to have some year to thought about what happened in this moment. So we're thinking in this kind of city, and we have a city that maybe some people they don't know that received bombing in the past, Buenos Aires, and we are have some conversation to do that. But all these projects are very difficult, and we dedicate a lot of time, 3 years or 2 years for only 30 minutes. So we are not say that next month we are going to be in another.
Definitely not. 3 years for 30 minutes. That must feel so incredible to be working towards something and then have it pass right before your eyes. How does that feel, especially being such an elemental performance, being so in touch with nature?
Yeah, well, hello?
It's on.
Well, I think that's is part of the conversation. I think we were very lucky because the last performance was 8 years ago. So I think we were lucky that that Poetry International was interested to bring this performance to Rotterdam. And one of the things that we learn in this process, because it's a learning process as well from both sides, how this can or cannot be done. I think and the team of Poetry International was super organized. They for each problem they have a team, and we were like all three together for all the problems. So in that sense, we are very grateful for that kind of collaboration in order to be able to also to resist the complexity of a project like this one. There is a lot of permission process, there is a lot of uncertainties. So until the end, until the same day, and it's not easy to find that interest, even though because this is not a project about renting an helicopter and dropping stuff. That is, it's not about that. There is a huge world behind. There are the poets, the translators, there are the permission process, there is the weather, there is the documentation. So there is a lot of different angles. And so in order to answer the question, we have the dream to go, for example, to Japan one day. But Japanese culture is completely different. The relation with memory and with the past of those atrocities is very complex as well. So it's not just that you go and do the work. So it's require a lot of patience, and I don't know. Yeah.
But it also sounds very interesting to be able to keep researching the interaction of cultures in your work in that way, even though it may be so much work for seemingly flighty moments. They are also recorded, and I think they go down in a city's history.
And that is about poetry as well. I would like to remember what Diana said yesterday about that poetry is not just an art form, it's also a way of being in the world.
Definitely.
And I will say, to do this project, you need to be in the world in a different way. So so I will say that for me resonate a lot about how at the end, after 2 years, we will be able to draw the poems over the Vinacrote.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have one last question for the three of you. If you could give one word of advice or 2 words of advice for any poet that may be listening, that has an idea, an inspiration for a project, that may be inspired by your project, if you would have a word of advice, what would it be?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. And it's very direct advice. It's very Rotterdam coded.
Oh,
It's very hard, to be.
No, I will expand on that. I will say about the question of the role of poetry in all this mess. I think poetry and art do not change the world, but build the space to think about that.
That is very beautiful.
Which is something completely different to understand about who make the mess and what are the people that think about that in order to not to repeat those kind of situations.
Definitely. Thank you.
No,
Amen.
Thank you for coming.
That's the advice.
No, I think that you need to show your work. That's only. Yes.
All right, you need to show your work. Any poets out there, you need to show your work or don't do it. Thank you so much, all three of you, for this amazing conversation. I thank you for bringing this incredible project to Rotterdam. Thank you also for the incredible poets that we've had, Cha, and also Macarena. Thank you, Poetry International Festival, for making all of this possible as well. And thank you, audience, for being here, for listening, and sharing in this moment with us. A warm applause for Casagrande, for yourselves, and have an amazing evening. Thank you.